Hello, my name is Mart Laanpere, and I'm really sorry that I can't be in Moldova right now during this nice Marti Shore week. Uh, I know how big is this festival of spring in Moldova, and I've been there several times during this festival and seen how joyful it is. But today I'm going to talk about why shouldn't we uh, treat this crisis as only a bad and negative thing, but how we can actually learn from this crisis and improve our educational system. And I'm going to talk from the perspective of Estonian educational system, which is most familiar to me. So don't waste a useful crisis is a quote I took from Winston Churchill. So there is a concept of disruptive innovation in the field of educational technology. And by disruptive innovation, researchers usually mean this kind of new technology or new business models that break down existing markets and value chains, just like happened to the music industry when music got separated from carrier, the vinyl or CD disc, and everybody was able to just download the music from internet or stream it. And once the music industry switched to the streaming and downloading business model, um, many uh, market types and warehouses and logistics actually lost a lot of money. People lost jobs because the music industry and music market was disrupted by this radical innovation. Uh, so in case of disruptive innovation, the innovation comes first and then disruption follows later. Now, during this COVID emergency distance education period, we had the opposite thing. We first had total disruption of the society and life, and also the education process. And this disruption, when the schools were shut down and where students and teachers were not able to meet anymore in the classrooms, it forced teachers and schools to create innovation on the wide scale. Because normally, just like in Moldova with this future classroom project, and usually there is a small group of teachers in every country, in every school, who are just in love with everything new, and they are called innovators. But it's a relatively small group. Uh, but it takes a crisis to take innovation to a really wide scale to make most or majority of the teachers and students to use new innovative digital tools, platforms, content. And this is exactly what happened last spring and also in autumn. So looking back, I could see that there many companies actually suffered during this crisis, but there were very clear winners, especially in education sector. For instance, video conference service providers, they got really rich and increased their customer base not 10 times but more. Digital textbook publishers, they flourished. Also, the companies that provided online learning platforms or e-assessment tools. So most of these companies that were winners actually in parallel try to innovate also their services and to make them the services um, feasible, accessible by anyone. Some of these companies actually reduced the price or gave away for 2 or 3 months their services for free. Yes, but this is what happened on the in the world in general. But I'm going to tell you a story today about how Estonian schools coped with this disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemics and emergency distance education. Uh, so, first, the timeline. In Estonia, uh, as late as beginning of March, we still didn't believe that this virus has something to do with Estonia. So it seemed that this is somewhere very far in China or in Italy where people were concerned. But things started to change very fast in March last year. So on March 16, with only 3 days warning, our government shut down the schools. And initially they said that it will be for 1 month, but it was very soon extended until the end of the school year. So from mid-March until the end of school year, the schools were closed. And we had also the second wave of COVID in the end of the year. So the next lockdown started as late as December 14th. And now, again, Estonian schools are closed since last Monday. So last week was a school holiday. Before holiday, in January and February, the schools were still open. But now our infection rates are on top of European statistics, so we have really bad situation right now here. So in most of the schools, adaptation and creating a new normality took 1-2 weeks, and some schools 3 weeks, depending on the school's digital readiness, as we called it. We have been measuring the school's digital readiness since 2016, when we created the tool, self-assessment tool for schools called Digital Mirror. You know this fairy tale, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all in the world. But this mirror was created for schools to assess the school's digital maturity or readiness. How capable is the school as a whole to use digital learning platforms, content, and methods? So in 2016, the schools, majority of schools, 80% of schools were evaluating themselves, and 3 years later, 2019, almost 90% of schools self-evaluate themselves. So we were lucky that we were focusing systematically already last 5 years on raising the school's capacity to deal with digital education. So some schools still were not so ready because we don't have central control over the school. So we expect that schools themselves want to evolve and develop, but some schools focused on some other issues in the last 5 years, not to their digital readiness. And for them, it took more time to create this new normality and start teaching fully online. So community supported a lot. Companies and municipalities donated laptops especially to large families and poorer families. The families also got free internet connectivity upgrade to faster internet to be able to accommodate online access to learning platforms and content to all kids. Educational technology industry provided their online tools for free in March, April, May. Ministry of Education acted quite smart. They avoided micromanagement, so they didn't intervene to schools' decision making. They respected schools' autonomy. They gave advice, but this advice was not compulsory. For instance, in the second week of lockdown, ministry uh, asked schools that to consider uh, uh, stopping the assessment practices. No grading at all in all schools. But the final decision was still on the level of schools. So many schools decided to continue assessment, but some schools listened to ministry and they didn't grade for 2 or 3 weeks and then gradually started again. Parents felt really big pressure. Many parents became assistant teachers and were actually quite frustrated. So we had lots of tensions between parents, especially in large families, and schools. Both teachers and parents were quite exhausted, I would say, and frustrated by the summer. So, looking back at this experience in Estonia, I would say that schools coped quite well and they continued their mission to deliver high quality education to all students. So, this is the general level feedback, what I say. Now, uh, the rest of my presentation is based on our research we conducted in Tallinn University about this emergency distance education period in Estonian schools. So first, our research results in more than 100 schools and in-depth qualitative interviews with 12 schools. They showed that the first week of lockdown was crucial for schools, and as there was no time for planning because on Thursday late night the ministry announced that the schools will be closed on Monday, so it means that it gave schools only one day, the Friday, to make necessary preparations, and it wasn't enough. So it means that almost all schools continued next week using their own normal lesson schedule. But they found out very soon that this is not a meaningful way of working when you can't meet the students. So many schools stopped this practice after 1 week. So they didn't follow anymore this lesson schedule, but they started to redesign the schedule on the weekly cycle. So teachers gave assignments for a week, and then they met students once or twice during a week only for consultations. So there was no lectures, no teaching, only consulting students who didn't cope with this individual tasks using the online tools. So families with more than 2 kids were in big trouble because especially during this first week when they had to keep all their kids online for a full school day. So it means that they needed at least as many computers as many kids they had, but they also needed computers for their own work because also the parents were staying at home and they had to work from home office. So and that's why that was one of the reasons why this normal lesson schedule was stopped and they're replaced with weekly schedules. The kids actually many kids, almost half of the kids learned to self-regulate their learning processes, and 1/3 of the kids did it very well, and they tried. Actually they learned faster, they learned better, they learned more than during the normal school days. And they did it very fast. It means that they got more free time to spend for their hobbies, and they really enjoyed it. But it was 1/3 of the students. Another 1/3, they faced a little bit more difficulties, but they survived. But the last 1/3 of the students, they were really struggling and needed their parents' helps. They needed their brothers and sisters' helps and teachers' help, and also sometimes special needs educators' help. So what we noticed in our research that the share of individual assignments grew rapidly. So normally in Estonian schools, the majority of teachers actually also conduct this group work and collaborative assignments. So these were dropped very fast because it's so much more difficult to supervise and give feedback to. So it means from mid-March until mid-May, the schools were mostly focusing on individual learning, where some students coped better than the others. But ministry noticed it and then recommended in mid-May that the last 3 weeks of school year should be spent on interdisciplinary collaborative projects. Either they students meet outdoors or they conduct these projects online, and this is what when this individual subject focused learning in many subjects and in many schools was stopped, and students started to do some fun projects. So it was very nice end to the school year. So about digital content and platforms, our research showed that the Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams were the biggest winners. So majority of schools started to use it for supporting learning. And we had very ambitious digital turn program in Estonian schools, very well funded, that lasted from 2015 to 2020. And as a part of this program, interactive digital textbooks were created in all subjects, and they were made available in 2019, before the crisis. But many schools didn't start using them because there was no urgent need. But now, when they had to switch to online education, majority of teachers discovered these fantastic new interactive textbooks that actually correct the students' assignments on the go, and teachers' workload is reduced significantly. So this platform is called OPIQ, OPIQ.ee. It's also in use now in Kazakhstan, and Austria is planning to take it into use. And they have more than 200 interactive textbooks there available in Estonian, unfortunately, so you cannot use it immediately. Yeah, but many teachers also created their own digital learning resources and published it and made it available for other teachers. So also support and training to teachers was important, but there was a trick that the teachers were so busy and so overwhelmed from the beginning of the crisis that they couldn't in parallel teach in this new format like online learning and also to attend the training courses. So they were looking for more flexible ways of supporting, and mostly this flexible support came from educational technologists. Almost all larger schools and mid-sized schools in Estonia have hired a professional education technologist who is pedagogical expert, who knows everything about teaching online and using online services and tools and platforms. So they were the heroes. They actually assisted their colleagues in starting this online education in the right way, and the teachers could get help from them anytime. And Educational Technologies Association on the national level, they also created the Facebook groups where they answered all the questions of the teachers. They prepared the seminars, webinars online for very specific items like assessment online or creating online assignments, or how to do this or that in Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. They were very useful for most of the teachers. Special needs education became really crucial, and all Estonian schools have this special need education specialists. They jumped to help families and children. Sometimes they even met the students outdoors, to consult them, to help them to learn and to raise their mood. So it it the, it means that there was lots of support to teachers from different sides, from national agencies, from education technologists, special education specialists, and so on. There were still many open issues, and are still today, like our national authority of data protection is very critical of the practices of these innovative teachers who are using these many different digital services in online education. Our national data protection authority says that this violates the privacy of our students, and they ask to reconsider and then to use smaller number and safer platforms like Microsoft Teams or Google Classroom. So right now we have this situation that where students when students get infected with COVID without symptoms, and they are infecting the teachers who are already older, and they sometimes fell ill very seriously. And luckily, majority of teachers in Estonia are now vaccinated already, and I received my vaccination today. Yoo-hoo! So we hope that this issue will be solved very soon, when majority of teachers should be vaccinated in March. And we hope to open the schools in April again. So another issue is lost students. And what was curious, what our research showed, that these are not the same students who were struggling in the normal schooling days. So sometimes now we are losing the students who actually are not so weak, or they are not performing so badly, but they have some other problems with self-regulation, and it's much more difficult to work with these students because they actually don't have any special needs. They have motivation issues or competing interests. Yeah, so we have to deal with different group of students now who is getting lost. But let's say our research shows that the general number of students who are lost is not much larger than during the normal schooling before COVID. Then there is a lot of discussion and dispute now about the how big is the hole in the knowledge of the students. And UNESCO has claimed that their research shows that in many countries the students have fell up to 7 months behind of the normal learning schedule. I don't think that this is a case in Estonia. It's definitely smaller, and actually most of the exams that have been conducted now online, and also the level tests in biology, in physics, in mathematics, they show that the knowledge of today's students is basically the same as last year. So, but the discussion is still going on. And even more serious issue is mental health of students and teachers. And this is one of the main issues right now, that many companies and specialists are trying to help. So there are new apps coming up that help to discover early the mental health issues and to support students and teachers. Yeah, and from our research perspective, we also noticed that the school administration, school leaders, principals, deputy principals, they are complaining that they don't have data to base their decision on changing something in the school, because every teacher is functioning in their own online space, and the school principal doesn't get the data for what is going on in my schools, that who of the students are active, who are not so active, who of the teachers are working in which way and are more active than the others, and what are the results, and so on. So this is something that needs to be improved, and we already have started to produce a new online platform that helps school administration regarding that. And what the ministry has done now, ministry uh, first last year they tried to completely cancel the graduation exams on the 9th and 12th grade, but later they still um, conducted these exams, but they were made voluntary. And also this year, the exams will take place in after 9th and 12th grade. These are national exams, tests designed on a national level by specialists, and these are online exams, but they are not compulsory. So, and you can graduate this year and also last year from school even if you fail these national exams or don't take these exams. So I will finish my talk with lessons learned. I would say that government and ministry can help on a national level by supporting funding platforms, learning resources, data collection, and information sharing, teacher training on a large scale. But actually, the most of the decisions and important things are done on the school level, and it means that school autonomy again proved to be the most valuable asset in Estonian educational system. That we are really proud that Estonian schools, just like Finnish schools, are very autonomous and able to make right decisions. But it is good if the school also has educational technologists, qualified educational technologists that help flexibly the other colleagues, and probably the new kind of online learning platforms are needed to support learning analytics, data informed decision making, learner privacy, and better communication with parents. And finally, I cannot prove it, but this is my strong belief that students who cope this difficult time with online education during COVID crisis, they are much better prepared for future jobs than those students who graduated before the crisis. So thank you, and I hope that my presentation resonated with your experiences in Moldova.